Alright, it says I'm live. Yeah! Hey! How's it going? Coming at you live every single day. Okay, so the title of this is Linoleum Blown Apart. The template is set. Okay? And what I mean by that is that, like I said, with Ridley Scott and Steven Spielberg. Spielberg! What do I owe you? These guys are all doing Napoleon stories, right? Sorry. I'm used to holding my phone. Now I have to hold a iPad now. It's like, so this template is being set with Beau is Afraid. I talked yesterday about this schizophrenic future. I'm just gonna try not to move too much. You know, as a matter of fact, I should have set this up on my schmengy. You know me, guys. I'm ready to go. Like, I'm not into this technical crap at all. I want to rock and roll. I want to get on with the show. I actually, if I had a produced show, I could do a show from, say, my apartment. I'm going to be looking into getting a living space here in Los Angeles. But again, if I set this up, it might affect the sound or whatever. It might affect the lighting, but it better not affect my beverage. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I couldn't do this. I don't know. I don't get that many watchers anymore right there. I'm not here to, right? My head's down here. Hey, I'm down here. Yeah, you can't really. And I don't know about the sound either. Oh well. I tried. So the template is set, and you know, it's going to be great when these films come out. The Spielberg, Napoleon, and the Ridley Scott's Napoleon, because within a 2-year time frame now, because of digital video, and because we're gonna have 7 different directors, just like in, God, what was the name of that? Man, it was a film with, I think, Robert Rodriguez and was directing. Tarantino directed one, and 2 other people directed them, and it had Tim Roth. Okay, I told you guys I saw Tim Roth in New York. I got a lot of these like little stories. I was talking about Michael Imperioli yesterday as the basis for one of the characters. I'm gonna sit over here, and it's like kind of weird. So, I mean, you don't know what you're sitting in. People bring things and wipe it down. Anyway, so this template is set, guys. Okay, and so when Linoleum Blown Apart comes out, it's going to be kind of, we're not making fun of these great directors, Ridley Scott and Steven Spielberg, but it's going to be fresh in people's minds. Okay, it was called like 4 Rooms, I think. So you guys know my show. I work kinetically. I speak very fast. I use caffeine. That's the only drug that I actually use. And sometimes I gotta wait for things to come to me. I'm very sorry. It's very tough doing this show. Like I said, if I can get my apartment, and then slowly I'll have to go back to Michigan, and I'll have to get some. I have over between $5,000 and $10,000 worth of audio and video equipment. Not really audio, but video equipment in Michigan still. You know, I wasn't running away from anything. I never ran away from anything. When I left Michigan in '92, I wasn't running away from my girlfriend or anybody. I just leave, and I'm not afraid to go out into the world. And sometimes you gotta live like a hobo. And it's not easy. It's tough. And that's why I don't have any respect for very specific people in my life. And those people were family and former friends from Facebook. Fuck you. These guys are a bunch of phonies. You know me. So anyways, there was a LARPer in the park yesterday. He was screaming and yelling about his ex-wife, the police department, and God. What do I talk about on my show? Okay, now there's a 50-50 chance that this guy, it could have been a coincidence, but he was very well dressed. He was somewhat built, so it looked like he actually worked out. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? And, you know, these are who I call LARPers. This guy could have definitely been FBI. Or, like I said, he could have mental issues. And this is some of the stuff that I talk about on my show. I'm not afraid to talk about it. And I don't run ops on people. And again, what they do is they just like, you know, everybody thinks they're in a gang. Everybody thinks that they're, you know, run with a set and all this kind of stuff. I never thought that at all. Even if I had a chance to, I wouldn't. You know what I mean? Like, because what you're doing is you're dropping your collective IQ. I talk about things on this show that nobody else talks about, and the sun moves quite a bit. So I'm gonna move. Sorry, guys. I gotta do my show, and I gotta do my show every day. Sorry. Right? I gotta do it every single day. And because we get new things from my show. And like I said, this guy, it is funny though. I hate watching it when I do that, but it's annoying to have like a, you know, a gold stripe across my face, you know. But it is annoying, like having this guy yesterday pull this on me. And it's really just disgusting. If he's one of these LARPers, this has been happening nonstop since Las Vegas. And the difference between a person over the years is really significant. Especially for me, like going out in the world and like going to Europe and places like this, it actually changes you. It changes the way you see the world. It changes the way you think about things. You know what I mean? And like I said, when I have a girlfriend and I'm you know, and we're in a volatile relationship, I came up with not my father and my mother. I came up with Anthony Lucrezio and my mother. Okay? And Anthony Lucrezio and my mother had a volatile relationship, and it was physical. Okay? So when I'm with some broad and she's basically a coke whore and I'm ride or die, I'm like, look, you want to do this? Let's do this. Right? You know, just like with my wife, it's just like, no, I can go find somebody better than you. Really? Because I think you fucked up. And I'm not talking about my behavior. There's no excuse for it. But you can't equate neurological damage with what I did. You can't equate it. Because what happened with me was over in a few seconds, and I went back to get this person. Because if I didn't care about them, I wouldn't have went back. It's kind of obvious. So, you know, this is just ridiculous. And I'm stuck around a bunch of groupthink motherfuckers. And if that's how you want to roll, that's how you roll. I mean, like I said, I'm my own man. I'm my own person. I go out into the world and I take people on a one-to-one basis. I'm not going to background check anybody. But it looks like as of these days and right now, you know, I'll keep anybody at arm's length. I don't care if we get into a relationship or whatever it is. You know, I doubt that I'll ever allow anybody to get close to me ever again. You know, again, I'm not sitting here saying that I'm a victim, but some very bizarre things were happening. And I talk about those things because what they're using is electronic warfare. Make no mistake about it. I'm the only one talking about it on this show, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. Like I said, you will see Linoleum Blownapart get made. If I had my own place, I could show you stuff that I was looking up yesterday. There was a independent film about a punk rock band, something Sunshine. it looked really funny. Okay, and so what I'm proposing is an actual series. This is a series, a television series. And you know these stories, we've seen them a million times, where they're reading a book about Walter, and they're like, wow, he must have been a really crazy guy. And it's like, no, he kind of came from humble beginnings, one of the characters says. And then here we go. We drift into Walter's life. And so, again, you're going to have elements of this fascist country in Europe. Then you're going to have elements of LA noir that he gets involved in. And then, you know, after that, because that's where we're at in our story. If you watch my show every day, you got to watch it every day, even if you got to fast forward through part of it. Oh, it's really hot, guys. I can't wait to do my show. I just jump in here and just start it, like, right away. And then, you know, the sun moves and I'm like, So, we got 0 watches. I'm gonna get it done. Right? So, we're at the point, you guys, if you haven't heard what it's about, you have to go back and watch old episodes, right? So, I love Walter's life, but again, you're never gonna see him actually shooting the film. You're gonna see the people that he's hanging out with, people who are in his milieu, and he's gonna have a life like Linny. Linny is the leader of Linoleum Blownapart. He's the songwriter, and he's finding out all this little bits of information, the way I did in my life. You know, over time, you're figuring these things out. Like, everybody's a LARPer. Everybody works with the police department. Everybody comes around you and sets you up. I mean, I thought I was at a baseball game with Nathan, who's allegedly dead. And if he's not, I'll go ahead and dig his grave for him. Because they said he had a brain aneurysm. And this was right around the time that Jim Hicks, he told me he had a brain aneurysm, and he's gone. They moved down to Texas. And then Jim Hicks reveals the fact that his wife was dating James Kenneth Graham back at the freezer, the way she dated Robert Rebant. I mean, this is all bizarre to me. This is my real life. You'll have to look into it for yourself. These people are insane. And what they did is they expected me to commit suicide. And they were giving Disconnected Records the rights to my songs. And they thought that they did. And this guy is connected to James Kenneth Graham. There is no doubt. And I've had it with people like this. I don't even know this guy. We only did one show with them. And they're just a bunch of phonies. They put Ron Beauty's dead body on the cover of one of their records, and they're throwing their weight around. Well, like I said, it's not my problem, man. You're the one using my likeness in the murder article. That proves that he's an accessory to murder after the fact. Right? There you go. It's just as easy as that. But that's my real life, and what I'm doing in this property, Linoleum Blownapart, is there is going to be a murder, obviously. And again, there was a lot of murders. As a matter of fact, I got a lot of ideas for a lot of episodes. I was writing a blog, you know, back when they were crushing me with this tech at Atelier 4. I was working on Linoleum, or I was working on Two-Legged Animal around that time. Okay? And I was telling stories, and I was talking about my life once again, just like I'm doing right here on this show. And I think it's way more fascinating. I'm always fascinated by people's lives, right? And so that's what this show is. This show is part about my life. And when I got out of jail one time in Macomb County, Michigan, that's when I started writing fiction. And I wrote a story about a guy who went to jail. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm reading Eddie Bunker novels. I'm reading all this stuff. I read Norman Mailer by then. You know, that kind of stuff. You know, and people like that. And I read 2 Norman Mailer, actually 3 Norman Mailer novels and stuff like that. So, you know, this is the kind of stuff I'm reading. So this is what I tried writing before. But I just kept writing and writing and writing, and I'm working at Atelier 4, and I'm putting this blog online, and I'm talking about Gene Muir. It's M-U-I-R. I have an entire episode, a story, I was thinking about it last night, that I could do about when I found a signed photograph of Gene Muir behind a mirror that we were busting at the Ramona Theater, where one of my first episodes with murder and death like came into my life. There was a murder behind the Ramona Theater, and there was also around the time, not around the time, but actually earlier than that, there was a motorcycle rider who wiped out on my block, and they said the scuttlebutt was that he couldn't move from the neck down, right? He was whatever you call that, right? So, and again, I have all this like really violent imagery from when I was a little kid, and you know, I laugh about it and stuff like that now, but you know, at 57 years old, and just to think what my wife pulled on me, like, what are you doing? And it's interesting because, like Ace, like I was talking about, I look into these guys like from Casino, the real guy. Like he went out to Las Vegas. He got arrested like 3 times in like 72 hours. You know what I mean? They're like trying to send him a message and all this kind of stuff. Of course, he stayed there. He stayed there. He didn't go anywhere. And so, like me, when I was out there and I was fucking around and I was whistling past the graveyard, like when I got set up at Suzanne's for that domestic, that was all bullshit. That was all bullshit, man. The entire fucking thing, you know, they knew what to do right away. And that's why they were all over me. And she actually kind of instigated that. And we had seen each other afterwards. Like I said, I had seen Yolanda afterwards. After that incident. And again, you know, nothing can haunt you more than being involved in something like that, where you're just like immediately you feel this regret, right? But it doesn't define you as a person. And these people who are LARPing me, targeting me, and doing all this stuff, canceling me, it's like, dude, you know, what are you doing this for? Like, again, you're wasting your time. You're not wasting my time. You're not getting my ire. I'm looking at you like a fool that you are. Like, you're just behaving foolishly. And again, with this guy yesterday coming in the park and yelling, it's like, what does that serve? Who are you serving by doing that? And again, I can tell that he's LARPing me. Why? Because it's a huge park, and he comes over like 10 feet away from me. And he starts yelling, and he's yelling about the same thing. Well, because I got to talk with a loud voice to do my show, right? So if something happens in the park, you have all these quote-unquote witnesses saying, yeah, I saw a guy yelling. He was talking about his ex-wife. He was talking about the corrupt police department, and he was talking about God. I talk about the same things on my show. I talk about a lot of things on my show. And if I'm canceled, too fucking bad, and fuck you. You see how I roll? I don't care about these things. You care about them. I came up in the BC era. I write great stories. I stand by my book. I stand behind every word of it. I stand behind what I said when I'm talking about people actually using electronic warfare. And this starting at Gasoline Alley in Royal Joke, Michigan, running with Fed rats. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. This is nothing but proof that these guys work together, that racism is fake, and this is a scheme to get your ire, to get you emotionally charged and emotionally involved in something. You know what I'm emotionally involved in? My project, Linoleum Blownapart. And you're not going to redirect or misdirect any of my emotions when it comes to that. I got news for you, right? I know my stuff. I might not be able to remember it all, but so I need my smartphone. So, right, this behavioral malware that was put on my computer was done May 1st, 2021, okay? That's when he put it on there, and he's a Fed rat, the guy who did it, the guy from my band. He's not really a skinhead because he's just a liar and a piece of trash larper. But, so when I found it, and I never used my computer, I kept my computer off, and then I was able to find it. I went to Partridge Creek, and I found it. That's when they released the video of me that all the African-American gangsters are clamoring about. That's when they released that. So here you have a skinhead trying to set me up, and then when it doesn't go down, I got African-Americans like the people that I used to work with LARPing me, and that's when this was released. That's when the video was released, and that's when these people actively started harassing me. So you have an electronic timeline for everything involved. And what these people don't understand is that when I drank from the time I was 11, I was a different person. And I had to go down for that 2 years and be completely sober, right? Which means I can go have a beer now. And because they're obsequious Philistines and they're low IQ, meaning that if you run with a set, you're lowering your collective IQ. And when you target an individual like this, and you can go ahead and use electronic warfare, you're participating in the Milgram experiment that we know, number one, is wrong. It's been proven. You're not supposed to do that. And it's also been proven that shock therapy doesn't work. What are they using? They're using shock therapy, and they're using the Milgram experiment. You're busted, motherfucker. You see how it works now? We're not animals. Right? We are demigods. Now, if God is just a concept, which I believe that it is, pantheism, the concept of God, God is conceptual, okay. So God's conceptual. But we are demigods. We are not animals. We might be mammals. But at least in religions, and I don't care what religion you're part of, at least in the religious mythos, we are more than animals. And this is true, and this cannot be denied. So when you have, sadly, people like Mark Fisher, you know, it reminds me of, I don't know what it's called, Sunshine Express? Cormac McCarthy? Doesn't it kind of remind you of that? Where this professor goes to commit suicide? Do you see this parallel here? Do you see this? And again, I look for recurrences in my own life, and I take responsibility for my mistakes. Like, you can't sit here and tell me that I'm still responsible for something that happened 30 fucking years ago. You know, like, that's not quote unquote murder, right? And I also have a timeline. Nah, anyways, I'm not gonna talk about that. But you have the Tommy Lee Jones character who's like Mark Fisher, who ends up committing suicide. He goes to commit suicide. Why? Because he is overly intellectualizing everything, I mean. And he needs to pull back. What did I say as a professional driver? What do? When I'm getting in a bind, when I'm clicky, swipey, scrolly, likey, I'm all emotionally involved. Oh my God. Stop. Take your foot off the clicky, swipey, scrolly, likey. And take a step back now. Let that traffic go from around you. Now you're out of the bind. Now you're out of this bind, right? and you can see things in a different way. You see, the show's getting a little bit better. When you start my show, always fast forward. He's gonna get to what he's supposed to be talking about eventually. I like it if you guys just listen to my show. That would be great. Of course, I'm trying to grow my show, but these morons and these alleged gang members who were just like LARPing me hard yesterday, like, again, I want to say, you're wasting your own time. You're not wasting my time. You're wasting your own time. You're lowering your own IQ. You think you run with the set. I'm not impressed. All you are is a bunch of corrupt police officers. You're bureaucrats. So? I know cops too. My mother's a police officer. Basically, who gives a shit? But that's what this world is, and it's a world filled with these quote-unquote archons, right? They're gatekeepers. They're obsequious Philistines. That's what they are. I'm not trying to put them down. Bobbleheads, NPCs, right? I'm not going to sit here and dehumanize them. Because once you start getting into this double bind experiment, okay, now listen to the double bind experiment. If you're not looking at something, now none of us can do this experiment. We have to take their word for it. I believe in double bind. If we're not looking at something, then it doesn't move and it doesn't exist. Okay, so riddle me this, Bat-tard. If I'm looking in this direction, you're going to tell me that the flowers aren't blooming behind me and the grass isn't growing and right, the sun isn't moving. Come on, guys. When you start buying into this minutia rubbish that they're trying to push that you can't confirm, why are you allowing for it to create a world for you? Okay? We're getting into some serious, dangerous territory and nobody's talking about it. I'm the only one talking about it on my show, and I'm in the middle of writing a project, a television series that you're going to see. It's called Linoleum Blownapart. You all know it. And how we got here, I like what I was talking about yesterday about how Bo is afraid and Phoenix as the rising Phoenix, right? You burn it down, rises up again, right? Joaquin Phoenix is playing these two people and they're the polar opposite of each other. Okay? I mean, that is indicative of your schizophrenic future. And so with these two properties, Ridley Scott and Steven Spielberg, you're going to have, it's going to take at least 2 years to make Linoleum Blownapart, to get it going in pre-production. You're going to have people filming these films, okay, of reasonable service, has to be filmed. I have the template for that. Now, that's the beauty of it, is because the director and his art department, his team, his costume designer, everybody's going to get together, his line producer, right? They're all going to get together, his writers, and they're going to work on this thing. Hey, how you doing? Right? And I have the template for it. I have the outline. And they're going to like go, whoa. They're like, I know what I can do with this. I know what I can do with that. I know what I can do with this scene. I can add some dialogue, but that's really up to them, right? So he does Of Reasonable Service. Then he does Pork Chops in the Who's Gal. I was actually right here last time when I was acting out. I can act all of these things out for you, and I can get into the minutia of it, okay? Then he's going to do, I always messed up one. It's the Spangled Banner with, then Jeremy Cloud comes into his life. And you're going to be cutting to him working with Jeremy Cloud. And that's going to be like 8 years of his life. Okay? And I have everything worked out. There's going to be mysteries. And when Jeremy Cloud, and he does non-sticky candy dish, do you realize, I shouldn't even be telling you guys this, I give you something on every episode, really got to keep watching. When he does non-sticky candy dish, it's actually a combination of Lolita and Citizen Kane. That's what this film is, okay? It's both Lolita and Citizen Kane, okay? Because what Jeremy Cloud does, it might be subconscious and it might be from all the drugs that he takes, because he does take psychedelics, okay? He gives away a lot of secrets. And I told you guys that I'm reading this Ross McDonald book. It's called The Galton Case. And in this book, he's talking about generational wealth. And he's talking about these mobsters, these lowlifes, actually working to get this generational wealth. Okay? This is the same thing that happened to me with these phonies at Disconnected Records. I sent them that stuff in 04. Jason Clifton was directly involved in it. And again, if that phony from ALD is involved in it, obviously he is. And then Jim Hicks telling me that his wife was dating him down at the freezer puts them all three together. And he told me that Nathan, who I sold my car to, is dead. Well, you guys have to solve that mystery, because I don't have time for phonies like that. This is the long game that these guys were playing with me, because they knew my songs were good. And they knew that the gerbil stole the hook and sold it to Fox Sports, because they were all bragging about it. And that's what these people do. Take a look at John Lennon. And I'll guarantee that he's going to be the John Lennon in this case. That's how the fuck I roll. Right? Because I am ride or die. I'm do or die. That's why I put my actual life out on a limb. And when you look at it and you see the corruption involved, I was actually the bravest person out of all these people to go live out on the streets. Right? Yeah, and that's why they have to belittle me. They have to turn everything around and say, no, you're Zoolander. You're just dumb. You're Zoolander. You're stupid. Stupid? Really? I'm still living and breathing. I actually survived the self-harm ops. I survived the Q ops. I survived all of that. They wanted me, gone. Okay? And the fact that I'm still here and I'm actually doing a show just shows my resilience. Okay? And it shows how pathetic these people are. And I told you, he put behavioral malware on my computer. And when I busted him, here come the Fed rats. That proves that he was involved as a Fed rat. That proves that they were going to move on my house because Scott was gone next door. That proves it, man. I got him. And what did they do? They just dropped everything and walked away. There was a site up with the song Underclass that was put up by this entity called Toe Cutter, and that was gone too. So that proves that that was connected to this turncoat. And I proved that my songs are superior to theirs because you're not going to steal a non-superior riff. So like my songs are superior and my songs are, they have this hook. So do the templates for these 7 films. And so, like I said, Jeremy Cloud comes in like a cloud. And what's the second film? Not a Sticky Candy Dish? Insane. It's one of the dirtiest films, but again, they can't show anything to, post code, as they say, right? But they will. And again, it's up to the director to take it, right? It's up to the band, who becomes Linoleum Blown Apart, the band for the film, to take this song, you know, to its next obvious, you know, place, right? There's going to be a little bit of hardcore, but just like Nirvana, there's going to be melody there, and Green Day, and Rancid, and bands like that, right? Blink 182. Again, these are bands that I'm not listening to. One of the greatest jobs I worked on was with Mark Core. He shot the early Green Day videos. He might have shot one of Alanis Morissette's videos, because she was in town shooting videos. And I remember this girl, she wrote up the treatment for the video when she's at a parade, and she thought she was dating the director or something like that. I guess they were, right? And again, you know, like I said, these are the templates, and then this allows for the creative team that gets behind each one to come in and really do it justice, right? But I have everything solved. Like, I have the endings for everything, so you can only maneuver within that framework, okay? Because it has to end like that. And what was I talking about? I was talking about Scorpius XL, okay? So in case you don't know, I'm a big Twilight Zone fan. I'm a big In Search Of fan. You know, I know all these television shows and all this kind of stuff, right? Okay? So with Scorpius XL, you can't forget that this comes out in 1963. It comes out the same year that John F. Kennedy says, first we go to the moon era and do the other thing, right? And that's what blows people's minds. They're like, holy smoke. They get the speech from Kennedy in real life, kind of like Forrest Gump. And they go see this movie, but again, he's going to a farther out star station, right? They're going to the tetrahedron that is out there. And the storyline for Scorpius XL has a very similar one to that great episode of, I know I got to be more conversational, but I'm sorry guys, I don't know about the background, what you guys can hear. I'm going to do a more professional show once I get established here. I just put in my first 2 years here, year and a half, and it hasn't been easy. But anyway, so it's going to be like that one where you have a book and it's called How to Serve Man, and they're like, oh, it's a cookbook, right? So it's going to be on that level. And so the level also that, oh, you like this side? The level also that you're going to find the Spangled Banner in, because I'm not giving everything away, guys. I can get into the minutiae of all this. The level that you're going to be into that is going to be the same thing. It's relatively simple. It's kind of like the parallax view, okay? A lot of times when you go back and you look at these 1970s movies and stuff like that, and, you know, it's not really that complicated, okay? It's relatively simple. There's a love affair. You know, somebody double crosses somebody, then there's a murder, always. You always got to have a murder. And then there's a resolve. So, genuinely, that's what you're going to see in these films. It's not going to be super complex, okay? But what's going to make it complex is weaving them into the story, right? Where the kids are in the middle of reading the book, or you're in the drama that's going on in the kids' world. And then you could just have the camera pan over to the book, and, you know, they'd be like, what would Walter do in this situation? Because they're always talking about Walter. The way we were always talking about A Clockwork Orange. We were always talking about, hey, Droogies, hey, how you doing? So we're pretending, we're acting these things out in the punk rock world, right? And that's why I like Fred Armisen and his references to the music that he liked more than Steve-O. Steve-O's talking about this New York breakdown bullshit hardcore that's all cargo shorts and fucking ball caps and really terrible tattoos. I mean, just this whole, these kind of like knuckleheads. And that's the kind of stuff, that's why that guy put that on my computer, my former drummer. And that's why he put it on there. Because they're so dumb that they'll sit there and gossip like a bunch of old maid ants instead of coming to me like a man and talking to me. You understand? And they run their mouth and they don't know anything about things like shamanism. So when I go down and I'm doing yay, I do it like a shaman. I'm very well read. I understand that that's how you do it. And I'm not doing it nihilistically, easy for me to say, like the punk rock days. But what these guys are, and I name them by name, anytime, anywhere, son, anytime, anywhere, that's for sure. And they won't, because they think they run with the set. Oh my God. Ugh. They'll have somebody else, they'll have their biggest guy come over to beat me up. Like, that's how these guys go, and then they're like, I'm my own man. I handle my own business. And again, that's why they can't understand it. They'll gossip and be like, oh my God, did you hear Gordon's doing this? Gordon's doing that. Why don't you come to me and talk to me face to face? They can't. Right? They can't. That's their problem. That's their business. Not mine. They're a bunch of phonies, and like I said, they can't help ratting on themselves. That's what they do. That's how they throw their weight around. That's why I call them fed rats, man. They are rats. That's what they are. They're pieces of fucking trash. Man, why don't you just go do your job and leave people alone? Stop setting people up and sending inept idiots like my former drummer and like this guy yesterday. Right? I mean, this was just so pathetic. And again, this is how they work. They got a white guy doing one thing, and then they got a blood, or whatever you want to call them, a BM or whatever, BLM, whatever. I don't believe in any of that, okay? And what these guys do is they actually believe just because they use a little bit of tech, and I told you, you're in the panopticon, and they tease you and harass you, and if you bring it up like I do on my show, they'll say, oh, well, you're mentally ill. Again, guys, I've been through all of this for years. Right? Right? So, that's why I've always been a creative person. That's why the gerbil from Farmington Hills, Michigan, stole one of my songs and sold it, and they're bragging about it, and they're laughing about it. That means everybody was listening to it. They were listening to my songs. Right? I don't care if they sell. And in case you don't know, they created a fake grievance committee down in Ohio. That's who set me up on this thing, people from Ohio. That means that they cross state lines. And that's some pretty serious fucking business. But when I got my wife involved, my own wife, who I was with for 7 years, who I've known since the 90s, and then I have guys in my band involved who I've known since the 80s. Man, I think somebody messed up. I think somebody messed up big time. And I think numerous people messed up. I think my wife messed up, and I think Jason Clifton messed up. Those two people mainly. I think they really did. This guy that I don't know if my wife had an affair or not. I don't really care. Everybody's talking about Adam 22. Okay? I don't really care. But I have to venture to guess that she did. I have, and again, this is all on her phone. So her phone is the one ratting her out. She thinks that they're only listening to me. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I told you guys, I don't care what they say. A corporation could say anything. They could say like, well, we only kept the records for 7 years. It's a lie. It's a lie. And they're going to be on the side of whoever, you know, has the best lawyers or whatever. But this guy, this guy's a French national. Take a look at Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and take a look at the abominable snowman. That's what this guy looked like. Now take a look at me. Take a look at me. Okay, nobody's being vapid. Nobody's being like a narcissistic. But I guarantee any of these broads who know her are looking at her right now and going like, really? That's your former boyfriend? And you gave him up? Why? I mean, are you insane? Yes. She wanted me to self-harm. This is how insane she was. Oh yeah. So why am I with her? Take a look at my mother. Take a look at what a sociopath she was. You know, a complete and utter sociopath. Because she was so afraid that she put on the cloak of the Detroit Police Department, and she wore that cloak. And that cloak, you psychologically, it protects you. Look at me, man. Look at me. I'm out here every day.
Oh, yeah,
I do my show.
How big is that? The large ones are huge.
Mine's just, my hat size is 7 1/8. Anyways, so by the time this thing comes out, which will be about 2 or 3 years from now, 2 years, it'll start. Well, the pre-production, whatever. Anyways, Napoleon from both Spielberg and Ridley Scott will be in the zeitgeist. And that's the best time where you want this to come out, because almost certainly it'll be like the kids in Linoleum Blownapart are taking the mick out of this realm as well, because they're kind of making fun of Napoleon in a way, right? And I could see, I love Ridley Scott. We all do. I love Tony Scott too. Rest in pieces. Or he must have been in pieces once he hit the water. He committed suicide. He did a Tarantino script. Okay. Don't forget, a lot of stuff from Tarantino's script came from an African American guy in Detroit. So let's not forget about that. That's where all my stuff comes from. Oh, I just saw a poster for City Primeval. That's one of the first Elmore Leonard. Well, it's one of the best ones. Kill Shot and City Primeval. I like those two. Are some of the best. You could see that they've made tons of films out of Elmore Leonard. My understanding was that Tarantino purchased all of it. I'm not sure, you know, if that's true or not. But that's really who influenced me, and that's where I come from. I have that natural grit. Oh, and don't forget, I believe Michael Imperioli was actually, wasn't he in something about Detroit? It was called Detroit Homicide or something like that. It was a total fail. Okay, you know, again, you guys, you gotta understand something here. This is an original idea. And, sorry, I can just see this reflection in my spit. And you gotta be willing to have visionary people involved in this. I am putting my life on the line. I don't really care. These LARPers are pathetic. And don't forget, John Potash actually did great dissertations about Tupac. Okay? John Potash, Potash, he did great dissertations about Tupac. And he was surrounded by these Fed rats. And these are the same Fed rats that are all around me. These are the same LARPers. They're doing the exact same thing. Okay? I'm not saying it's the same situation, but I'm liking it to that. And I think he did the best take on what happened with Tupac. And I think it might have not had anything to do with Suge Knight at all. I think it might have taken Suge Knight by surprise as well. And this is what a lot of people don't understand. Because you have these type of patsies. You have this patsy archetype, right? And you have that person in his life that everybody's going to go, oh, they did it, right? Just like with OJ. I considered OJ to be an open case. I don't consider that to be solved at all. It's obvious that OJ didn't do it because, guess what? The law says that he didn't do it. The court of law says so. I don't care what public opinion is. It doesn't matter. So this is how they set people up. And you could see a big spike in sales for Tupac. And the template was set when? It was set with John Lennon. You understand? When he won that lawsuit. And he won the lawsuit based on really kind of stealing a Chuck Berry song. And who was talking about stuff like this? The Sopranos. All this stuff is in The Sopranos. And they introduced it right there. And that's part of where I got the idea behind the character for Max, who's going to come in, but his family, you know, they don't want anything to do with him because he's a bastard son, like Hiram Abiff. His father is an older guy. Okay? I have a new playlist. It's called Must Watch, something like that. Check out my playlist. I don't ask you for any money. I am homeless. I live like this. I might go through this system. I don't know. I don't know really what's going to happen. Like I said, these guys were LARPing me so hard yesterday, it was pathetic. And again, you know, this guy tried to get my my EBT card. I mean, it's like, are you a fucking... They look at me and they see this babe in the woods. And that's not my problem. You understand? Just because you consider me, you know, that's your projection. And that's why I talk about this projection a lot. And I talk about things on my show that nobody else talks about. And there is a hook. There's a hook in every single one of these properties. The 7 films that are going to be woven into the timeline. Because like I said, you can't have bands worshiping other bands. You have to have these kids, not bands, but just one band, Linoleum, Blownapart. And there's going to be murder, and there's going to be intrigue, and there's going to be drugs, and there's going to be other bands coming in. There's going to be fist fights. There's going to be like the mosh pit and all this kind of stuff. We're going to be showing all this stuff. But what has to happen is these films by Walter have to be shot concurrently by 7 different directors. It's like, oh yeah, Asteroid City, yeah, that's done now. Can we bring in Roman Coppola? Sofia Coppola just finished doing a book that I read, Priscilla Presley's book. I read it. Is she ready? Can she come in? Yeah. Does this director that Fred Armisen was talking about on Steve-O's show, can he come in? Can they work together and shoot one of these? Yeah, he's not busy right now either. And you have to go by this. Okay, guys, here's your template. Here it is. What can we do with this? Let's workshop these ideas. And they'll sit down because they're so creative. And it's like, yeah, I got a writing partner. Or let's bring somebody in. And they can sit down and they can write this whole thing out. Now, each one of these films is going to be available on their own. But that's going to be an Easter egg release later. This is all about making money. There's nothing wrong with making money. But you have to have the people, the bankers investing in it, and you have to have the number crunchers. I know my role. My role isn't a fucking numbers cruncher. I'm an on-the-ground guy. Okay? I can actually get things done. I'm a production assistant. I'm a songwriter. I'm a writer. I could sit down and write a scene. I could create something right now. You could see all these narratives that I've had. I mean, everything from a werewolf to radiated dope in LA 2039. I could combine any of these ideas Like I said, some of them I had for quite a long time. I could come on here and I could actually do a 2 to 3 hour show every single day. You know, I'm familiar with the Gestalt method because I was thrown off the set of Abacus Fell. You understand? I'm not afraid of any of these people. I'm not afraid to talk about my projects, and I'm not afraid to put my life on the line. Thank you very much for watching my show, and I appreciate it more than you'll ever know.